Morning.
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 Excuse me, sir. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
You can hear me? Oh,
No.
morning. Woo. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Renee.
Sorry. Thanks, Renee.
All right. As you can tell, my colleagues and I are ready and prepared for any adventure. I myself am ready to take on a snowpocalypse, a hail spedition, or even the most deadly of frozen forays, the ice capade. But anyway, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Children's Collaborative State Summer Reading Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Derek Ivy, and I am the Youth Services Coordinator at the Suffolk Cooperative Library System. My colleagues from 13 other New York library systems and I set out on an adventure to create this morning's workshop, and what we have discovered is that you all are incredible. Today, library staff members from across the state have gathered their supplies and are ready to share their findings from some of their most creative, fun, and imaginative children's library program expeditions. From indoor library hikes to summer adventures, bear hunts to espionage spy rings, there is a whole slew of amazing programming ideas that will be presented to let your patrons know that adventure truly does begin at their library. As we all know, adventure can mean many different things to many different people. As your hosts, we have decided to choose our own adventures, and we hope that you will too. Take these excellent examples of vivacious ventures as inspiration. If you were to recreate one of these programs at your library, it may not look exactly the same, and that's okay. Make sure to choose the adventure and pack your patrons' parcels with the supplies that fit your community best. Don't be afraid to go off the beaten path. Before getting to the good stuff, I do have some housekeeping to go through. Please take this time right now to change your Zoom name to the name you used to register for today's program for easy attendance taking. That's first and last name, please. One of the easy ways to do this is to click the three dots on your small Zoom box and click Rename. Each system rep will be sending professional development certificates to their own system. Our presenters today will have a 10-minute block for their presentations. We also have some time scheduled for each presentation for a Q&A from attendees. As someone is presenting, feel free to drop your question into the chat, but please start it with the letter Q. I don't know how to do Q, so we know to come back to it. For our presenters, when you would like to advance the slide, just say next slide. For timing purposes, please pay attention to our amazing shark friend, Jack, who will be holding up a 2-minute warning sign. At 1 minute, a timer will appear on your screen, letting you know to wrap things up. Please don't panic. We're not going to shut your camera off, but we're just letting you know that you're at the end of your time. As a note, we will have breaks throughout our time together. This entire event will also be recorded. The videos will be shared at a later date. All right, so now put on your hiking boots, grab your reusable sustainable water bottle and a snack or two because it's time to hear from our incredible colleagues. Up first, we have Jessica Park from the Smithtown Library who will be presenting The Amazing Race.
Morning.
Hey, Jessica.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we're going to share your slides.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh. All right, cool. So I'm Jessica Park. I'm a children's librarian at the Smithtown Library. My program is Amazing Race. So if anyone's ever seen the TV show Amazing Race, this is basically just like a ripoff of that concept adapted for children. So we set up a bunch of different stations throughout the room, and then kids got to travel around the world and complete challenges at each station based around each of the different continents. So I've run different sessions of this program for ages 5 to 7 and ages 8 to 12, and then I have some minor adaptations for the different age groups. So next slide, please. So at the start of each program, each of the kids gets a passport and they take that with them as they visit each of the different continents. And then there's a page in each in the passport for each of the continents, and then there's a space for a passport stamp and a space for the number of points that they earned completing each challenge. So we had teen volunteers manning each of the stations. So then those volunteers just filled out the passports as they traveled around the room. And then we printed passport stamps out on label paper just to make stickers for the volunteers to stamp their passport as they completed each challenge. Next slide, please. So each station was labeled with a different continent. It had the name of the continent and then just like a little silhouette of what the continent looks like. And then they got a route info clue that led them to the continent that they were starting at. So I have an easy version of that that just has like some blank spaces and a silhouette of the continent for the little kids that can't read yet. And then the big kids got a actual clue that's related to the continent. And then at the start, I would give each kid a random route info clue just so that they're not all bunching up at one station. So just to stagger them a little bit. Next slide, please. Okay, so then, like I said, each continent has a different challenge that's based around something from that continent. So for Australia, we had a sightseeing challenge where they were just putting a puzzle of the Sydney Opera House together. And then I gave that challenge to both age groups, but for the younger kids, they only got the puzzle pieces that actually went in the Sydney Opera House puzzle. And then big kids got that puzzle, but they had random puzzle pieces of different landmarks mixed in to make it a little harder for them to put the puzzle together. Next slide, please. So then we had our Asia station. So this is based around the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. So that was just a challenge for them to build a skyscraper. So I just put out a bunch of blocks. I taped a yardstick to the side of a table and then challenged them to build a 2-foot tall tower that stood on its own. For kids ages 5 to 7, I did give them just that challenge by itself, let them use as many blocks as they wanted. And then big kids, I had like a scoring system for our volunteers. They got more points if they used fewer blocks. Next slide, please. So for our Europe station, there were 2 different challenges. The little kids and the big kids both got a choice to do the art museum challenge. That they basically had a little printout that showed them 3 famous paintings, and then they got to see it for like 5-10 seconds, then it went away, and then they had to try and draw it from memory. And it was stuff like the Mona Lisa, so if you drew a woman, then that counted as remembering what the painting was. So things like that where they were very different subjects, so that if they got the general idea, then we would count that as correct. So all the little kids did that challenge. The big kids got a choice between that challenge and our language challenge, where they basically were racing to match the word hello in different languages. So just different languages in Europe. And that was a choice for them, either option. Next slide, please. So then this was our most fun station. So our Africa station was another 2 choices. We had a relay race challenge. So there's a chef in Kenya that has the world record for the most time spent cooking. So this one, they were racing play food from a table to a bowl while trying to balance it on a wooden spoon. So that was the only option for the little kids, for the 5 to 7s. The big kids got another choice between that one and our world record challenge. So the world record challenge was based around an artist in South Africa that has the world record for the largest display of origami butterflies. And they basically just had to race to complete an origami butterfly as quickly as they could. Next slide, please. So then we had our North America station. This one was based around baseball. So we had just a matching game with different baseball team logos. So the little kids just had to find 3 matching pairs to complete this challenge, and the big kids just had to find all of the matching pairs to complete the challenge. Next slide, please. For South America, we had different buckets that represented cities in South America, and then the kids were just trying to fly paper airplanes into each of the different cities and land them at the different cities. And then this was the same challenge for both age groups, but for 5 to 7-year-olds, we pre-made the paper airplanes, and then for the 8 to 12-year-olds, part of their challenge was making 5 paper airplanes before they started flying them. Next slide, please. Okay, last station was our Antarctica station. This was rescuing some endangered animals. So they basically had to just move the animals from one home to another with just tweezers. We gave this challenge to both sets of kids without any adaptations. It didn't really need any adaptations to make it harder for at least our 8 to 12-year-olds. Next slide, please. As far as costs and planning, it was free for us. I only used stuff we already had and printable materials. Most of the stuff we used is probably stuff you already have, but anything that you don't already have, if you were going to recreate this, is stuff that is pretty cheap. Planning took a little while to make everything the first time, but then once I was repeating it, not too much time. Next slide, please. If you wanted to recreate this at your own library, all of the materials are at the link below. The link is case sensitive, but once you go there, you can print out and use anything that I used in the program. And then next slide should just be my contact info. So if anybody has any questions.
Jessica, thank you so much. This sounds like so much fun. And I'm also just an amazing race watcher. So to do a mini one where I don't actually have to like spelunking off a mountain or anything like that sounds like the way to go for me. So I have a question here for you. This is from Nicole. How long did each station take the kids to complete on average?
So it was a 45-minute program. Most of them took close to 40, 45 minutes for the whole program. Some of them were a little faster, but nobody finished the whole thing in more than 30 minutes. So with like a 5-minute intro, I would say no more than 5 minutes or so at each station, but some were quicker.
And do you have like volunteers at each station or fellow staff members that are kind of controlling chaos?
Yeah, so we had our teen volunteers manning the stations, but I know I've worked at some libraries that have like an army of pages that can help out in programs, so that would work out too, but we only needed, there's 7 stations for each of the continents, so me plus 6 volunteers is really the minimum that we needed.
Okay. And then, so we got a question from Beth that says, what are the points for?
So at the end, we tally up the points and see who the winner is. The person who completes the race first gets like bonus points, like 20 points or something like that. I have my scoring sheet in that link that I sent. Let me put the link in the chat too, actually.
Thank you.
But the winner of the race gets a few extra points, but then if you're spending a lot of time completing your challenges, you will get points that way. So you might not win if you are the first to complete all the challenges.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for dropping that chat in there, Jessica. Wow, multitasking for the win. We also have one more question here from Caroline. Did any kids get upset when other teams were advancing if they were stuck?
So sometimes they would get a little frustrated if they weren't completing the challenge as well as some of the other kids, but I think that's something that it helped having somebody manning each of the stations, because then you could give them a little bit of help as they were going through. So if they were a little bit stuck, you could fudge it a little to make them unstuck. So we were trying to intervene before they got too upset.
That's great. Yeah, we don't want any tears during our Amazing Race program. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to present this amazing program. It sounds like so much fun. And Jessica dropped the link in the chat. I know that I saw someone else dropped Jessica's email address. And don't forget, this is being recorded. It will be sent out, so you'll be able to see all that information once it goes out again. Jessica, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
All right. Next, let's move on to Suzanne Schwartz from the Finkelstein Memorial Library, who's going to be presenting Backyard Science. Hey,
Ready?
yeah.
Hi, how are you? So my name is Suzanne Schwartz. I'm from Finkelstein Memorial Library, and I'm going to be speaking about a program we had last July called Backyard for Science. Actually, Backyard Science. Next slide. I don't see the slides on my end, so I'm kind of like winging it. So the adventure can begin at your library this summer. Just get outside, play, learn, and experiment. So we set up a Backyard Science, next slide, program outside. We had 14 children register and 10 adults register come with their children. My colleague and I facilitated the program. In addition to, we had 5 teen volunteers to man 5 tables of experiments. It took approximately 1 month to prep for the program. It was held outside in front of the library in a grassy area. I had 1 table for each experiment, which could accommodate 2 children at a time. Since the program was in July and it was very hot, we set up canopies over the table as well. Next slide. This is a list of the materials that you would need to buy. Volcano models, which I have a hot link to on the resource pages that you'll get after, with that includes all the recipes for the experiments and directions. Vinegar, you need about 2 gallons. Dishwasher detergent, hydrogen peroxide, 2 gallons. Balloons, reusable plastic bottles that you can also buy on Amazon, which they also have a link on in the resource. And then you need 1 to 2 empty, 1 or 2 liter empty soda bottles. Also purchase safety glasses. Make sure each child gets safety glasses that can also be purchased on Amazon. You need about 6 9 by 11 aluminum pans, cornstarch, borax, dry yeast, Elmer's glue, 1 gallon or more. You need liquid measuring cups, measuring spoons, and recyclable plastic cups and bowls, and food coloring. Next slide, please. So we'll just quickly go over the experiments that we had. We did volcano, elephant toothpaste, balloon blow up, slime, and bouncy balls. Next slide, please. So this is the recipe for the volcano and all the ingredients that you need. Depending on how many children you have registered, you'll probably want to maybe adapt the measurements. Next slide is elephant toothpaste, which is really fun. Again, you might want to change adapt the measurements. For the elephant toothpaste and the volcano, I included the aluminum pans because it does get messy. Make sure you set up these experiments near a spigot and hose because between experiments, like after you have 2 children at that station, you want to quickly wash everything out for the next group of children. The next slide, please, is the slime experiment, which everybody loves. You'll be using your plastic bowls. Of course, everybody gets to take home their slime. Next slide is the balloon blow up. That's where you'll be using your 2-liter and 1-liter empty soda bottles. Next slide is the bouncy ball. Again, you have all your list of ingredients. Those the children get to take back home. I'm sorry. Next slide is my recommendations. So because it is extremely hot outside, even though you have the canopy, have it as early in the summer as you can. Don't forget your aluminum pans for your volcano and elephant toothpaste experiments. Also have that spigot and hose nearby to clean out the pans. I would suggest you complete a trial run of all the experiments during your preparation period. You may have to adjust the measurements to get the correct results. We did do a lot of we tested these experiments a few times before. Additionally, if you anticipate a larger registration than I had, you may need to order a greater amount of materials. The ingredients and directions for all experiments will be included in your resource packet, including some hot links for purchasing materials. And if you have any questions, next slide, you can contact me at Finkelstein Memorial Library at my email. I've also included my cell phone number. You can call the library as well. I'm at extension 237. Does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Suzanne, thank you so much. And I appreciate that reminder to get the canopies and do it early so it isn't too hot. We have a question from Lori asking, does the elephant toothpaste call for a particular type of yeast?
I use dry yeast. You get that in the packet, or you can buy it in bulk.
Do you know if you use instant or the regular by any chance?
I don't recall. I don't think it matters. Any of that, the yeast that comes like kind of granulated in little granules.
All right. Thank you. We have another question from Jackie. Could each experiment be done as its own program?
Well, of course you can. You could do the slime as a program. I've done that before. You could do the volcano as its own program. Yeah, I think you can do it. I mean, the balloon blow up is kind of fast because the children just attach the balloon to the 2-liter or 1-liter, and the chemical reaction takes place pretty quickly. But yes, I don't see why you couldn't do the slime, the volcano, the bouncy ball, and them as separate programs. We're going to actually do it again this summer, or do some other change the experiments around a little bit, and we may do maybe fewer experiments, like maybe 4 instead of 5. It was a lot of fun. And also one other recommendation, make sure that you laminate the directions for the teen volunteers as well for the participants. I made sure that each table had at least 2 copies. So, of course, things get very wet, and make sure you have lots of water on hand because it's very hot. And yeah, the kids had a great time. The parents had a great time. We had lots of great pictures. So we're looking forward to doing it again this summer.
That is such a smart detail that I feel like I wouldn't have thought of, to laminate the instructions, because things are exploding, things are going all over the
Yes.
place, and you don't want that teen volunteer walking up to you with just sopping, running paper going, I don't know what to do. That's
Right.
so smart. I was curious, out of those 5 experiments, which were the kids' favorite? Which one did they really gravitate towards the most?
Well, I love the elephant toothpaste and the volcano, of course, because you could see the chemical reaction and the messiness of it. Also, it's fun to add the food coloring, especially to the elephant. We added red food coloring to the volcano. And you can do, actually, with elephant toothpaste, you could do like 2 different colors and it comes out kind of striped.
Ooh.
So, yeah, the bouncy balls were also a big hit. So I think all the experiments were kind of fun.
Any thoughts on doing like a bucket-sized elephant toothpaste so it gets
Oh,
used?
wow. That sounds like fun. I think that's a great idea. I think I'll do that this coming summer, kind of to start out the whole thing, or
The
even make
elephant,
a huge model of a volcano.
that is such a good idea. I feel like I've seen elephant toothpaste done for some reason on like talk shows and late night chat shows, and they always do it in like a giant vat so that it explodes all over the stage. So that hose is definitely going to come in handy if you decide to do the bigger version.
Yeah, I like that. I think I will.
I was also wondering, so it was groups of kids. How many kids were doing an experiment at one time?
We had 2 children at each table, so it took between 5 and 10 minutes for each group of children to finish one and then rotate to the next experiment. And they could do it more than once. Since we only had like 14 children, they could come back and do the experiment again, their favorite experiment.
Oh, that's great. And then you
Mhm.
also said that they got to take the slime home. I was wondering, did you give them containers for the slime, or were they just kind of cupping it and then going into the
No,
car?
everyone got their own recyclable, bowl, foam bowl, and everyone got to take it home in their bowl, as well as the bouncy ball. So everyone got a take home.
That's really, really fun. And
Yeah.
I apologize if you said this already. How long was in total was the program? Did it run for?
It's an hour.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear what you do later if you do the big volcano, and see what experiments you swap in and out. But I think that's what's so great about this program, is that it's the idea of doing messy things outside during the summer, and you can kind of change it up how you see fit and what you can do with your library, at your library, in your space.
Right, and we don't have a lot of space, but we don't have like a lot of flat grassy space. So, we're able to do it right in front of the library in a small grassy area. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it worked out really well.
Thank you so much for sharing this
Oh,
wonderful
thank
idea. We
you. Thank
appreciate you
you.
taking
And
the time.
yeah, if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.
Wonderful.
Okay, be well. Have
You will.
fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So I know that there's some questions in the chat about certain things. Folks are saying that the slides aren't progressing, but the majority of us are seeing the slides progress. We're wondering if maybe you need to update your Zoom platform, or perhaps the bandwidth that you're working on. It's just too much with almost 260 people in the room. So for the majority of people, though, the slides are going through. I do want to say again, we are recording this. We'll send out the recording. We're also going to be sharing the slide decks as well, so it's not completely lost. So, Zoom seems to be the greatest gift, but also the greatest evil that we work with. So thank you for your patience as we go through this. Let's move on to our next presenter, we have Christine Baum from the Smithtown Library, who will be presenting the Mermaid Parade program.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Really happy to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we'll get your slides up in a moment.
Awesome.
Now,
Thank you,
Christine,
Jessica, and thank you, Suzanne, for showing. I'm so inspired by what's already being shared today.
this is the thing. Everyone is so incredible, and we're all doing these amazing things. That's why it's so fun to bring everyone together and be like, look what people across New York are doing. It's really wonderful.
Absolutely. Okay. So my program is an upcoming program that I will be hosting. I haven't done it yet, but I'm excited, and I hope that you can take some actionable ideas away from me today. I have a bunch of slides, so I'm just gonna like buzz right through them. So next slide, please. As with all of my programs, I aim to bring books to life, and I was inspired greatly by these three: Mermaids on Parade, Julian is a Mermaid, and the Big Beach Cleanup. So most of my programming ideas stem from there. Next slide, please. And anytime I come up with a program, I have like a general programming rubric. Number one, it has to have some sort of wow factor that makes it worth people, driving out. Two, the summer reading program is a ritual in and of itself, and I like to create programs that are good to be used again and again. And number three, adventure begins at your library, but where does it lead? So I'm always looking for opportunities to bridge with community partners and make inroads with them. Next slide, please. So I think you know where this is going. I knew that we had to host our own Mermaid Parade, and we'd had to have a field trip. So the best site was the Sunken Meadow State Park. They have an actual boardwalk that is 3 miles long. It is one of New York State's 180 state parks. It is located in Kings Park, New York, which is the North Shore of Long Island. Next slide, please. And it's got it all. It's got beaches, it's got sand, it's got the Long Island Sound, it's got a boardwalk, it's got greenbelt trails, sports fields, etc. And what's so beautiful is that they have been evaluated by destinationaccessible.org. They have accessible parking, they have ramps, flat terrain, places to sit, and even mobility mats on the sand so that you can get your stroller, your wheelchair, your walker onto the beach and join in the fun. Next slide, please. So once I had a general inspiration, I knew there had to be certain elements that went into this mermaid parade. First three we already talked about, the parade, a costume contest. People have to dress up in their mermaid costumes, and a story time is pretty obvious. For the dance party, parachute and bubbles, I like to add a lot of active movement. I like to make it really inclusive. The beautiful thing about that is that it's scalable. You can have walk-ins, like we're not going to run out of parachutes, bubbles. People can grab a hand on the parachute and join in. And honestly, it looks really cool. You're at the beach, you see kids playing with that. It just has like a good look to it. It invites people to come over and join. The volunteer activity is really the VIP of this. When I approached, so like the park's mission, it aligns with what they're all about. I'll read. Their mission statement for New York State Parks is to be responsible stewards of our valuable natural, historic, and cultural resources. So when I did reach out to the Sunken Meadow State Park and asked, hey, we'd like to do a volunteer activity, they recommended a beach cleanup. And the last three were ideas that just had to make it seamless and easy and great for our patrons, free of charge. How are we going to get around the $10 parking fee? All weather, this has to work. Like there's no rain date. This has to work. There has to be 2 different versions. Maybe we'll go in a parade with umbrellas, but how to make it robust, even if a lot of it has to be indoors. And then to make it for families, I'm thinking it has to be stroller friendly, it has to be baby friendly, and there has to be good activities for people of all ages and abilities. Next slide, please. So this is the general timeline, my roadmap. Early December, I cold called Sunken Meadow with my idea, and I got in touch with their park director, Sean Cruikshank, and he was wonderful. Together, we came up with like a minimal viable product. We both talked about what we needed on our end and what would be exciting for both of our missions. So he took it to regional management. I took it to my management to just make sure our idea could work. Mid-December, I get an email from Derek at SCLS about presenting if I wanted to. And I was like, yes, I think I'm going to make this happen. So by early January, I got today as the confirmed speaking date, and I knew I had to get a confirmed program date, which brings us about to today, where now I'm just filling out the park use permit application packet. It's 4 pages, and it's just the blueprint between the two of our venues, and it includes insurance and just other kinds of details. That's like the biggest, hardest part, is just filling out this thing. The rest of it's all creative. So I know that this program's going to be May. So from now until May, I basically just dot my I's and cross my T's, where I purchase craft materials, I buy the prizes, make the playlist for the parachute and the dance party, and write contest rules. So then May 17th, we're ready to go. Next slide, please. And all together, it's like 10-minute phone call here, 20-minute email there, come up with some marketing materials. Any of the real work, any of the program assets, or any of the marketing materials, I'm going to throw in that link between now and May. I'm going to have all of this as like a living document that you can access on Bitly. It's not there yet because I'm still building it. And I'll share a retrospective there as well, like any sort of recommendations and key takeaways. And the program itself is 1 hour long. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like. Mermaid Parade for families. So I will read, let's welcome summer and celebrate our beautiful waterways with a mermaid parade of our own. Dress in your best merfolk attire and join us for a costume boardwalk parade, story time, and other activities at Sunken Meadow State Park. We'll also be hosting a beach cleanup to contribute to our community. Please note this program will meet at Sunken Meadow State Park in the main courtyard at Parking Field 1. Next slide, please. So in case of rain, we're going to meet in the Nature Center, which is it's their on-site nature center. It's a classroom. And I wanted to just have something robust and fun and engaging to do as people are getting there and as I do check-in. And I wanted a craft that was beachy and something that's biodegradable, like no glitter, no plastic straws, like not the antithesis of a beach cleanup. And this is just the Crayola air dry clay and some sea glass, and it's pretty open-ended. Like, kids don't need me to show them how to do it. It's very like work with your own hands. Next slide, please. All right. So then once everyone's all checked in, they all have their bib numbers. They're ready to, go to the Broadwalk. We're ready to take a promenade. You can see here, this photo is of Sunken Meadow State Park in like 1930 to 45, and it is the place to be. Today, it looks pretty much the same. The boardwalk is wider, but it's exciting because the kids can have onlookers. They can, see the sand, and they can be on the site. Next slide, please. After that, we'll loop back to a story time. If the weather cooperates, we'll do it outside. I'll use a microphone. If not, I'll do it back in the nature center. And I will wear a better costume than just mermaid leggings. Again, I'll make a book list of my favorite books in the resource website. Next slide, please. I'm probably going to do prizes for everyone. I don't want to single anyone out. Then they're going to be bubbles, but I'll come up with categories like sparkliest, most creative, most realistic, best family. So this way everyone has some sort of, skin in the game. Next slide, please. All right. So if the weather is bad, we're going to do a dance party and bubbles inside back in the nature center, just so it ends on kind of a party note. And everyone's going to gather their things and get going. Next slide. But if it's good, we'll be outside. We'll go to the sand and we'll play some parachute games. we cannot obstruct the boardwalk. We don't want to be obnoxious. We want to be invited again next year. And this way, if we're on the sand, we can segue right to the beach cleanup. Next slide, please. So this is actually an add-on to the program. This is going to start at 6 p.m. And it's really a way for us to capture the onlookers. Sunken Meadow, they are very flexible. They're very open about having, it's not too many, it's not too much. They're very flexible about just registering day of. It doesn't have to be a certain amount. They're going to supply the trash bags, the gloves, and even an assistant. And also if there is like a great, I don't know what the turnout's going to be. I don't know if a lot of people are going to join, but if there's overflow, they can do this beach cleanup and they can wear a costume as well, but I'm just keeping it small to get started. Next slide, please. Basically, this program can be free, right? The parking is free, the parade, story time, and parachute, we have one, is all free. So the costs are really the tub of clay. I mean, a 5-pound tub is $13, but you can easily make your own, salt dough recipe, whatever. Sea glass is around the same cost. I'm making mine for 20 kids, but I mean, if you have a rock tumbler, you have Heineken bottles, make your own sea glass. The prizes for this, I mean, I got these bubbles on Amazon. You can get them in any quantity for any amount of money. You can do your prizes however you want. Options are endless. And in the middle, I am going to do competitor bibs. Stickers and name tags just always fall off. It's too frustrating. This is what I'm going to do. All right, next slide, please. I follow Brooklyn Public Library on Instagram. I'm always inspired, and I would love to participate in the, this mermaid parade that they have. Sadly, Coney Island is not my backyard, but there are spin-offs in Portlandia, San Marcos, Texas, New Orleans, and Greenport, Long Island. And they're popping up in places that have a historical tie to waterways, or they just have some tourism about it. And I figured, like, why not start a family-friendly one right here in Sunken Meadow? So I definitely am looking to do this again next year and the following years, make this like a ritual to join in the summer. And it would be beautiful if more libraries, join and this authentically builds into something that is for us. And last slide is my contact information. That's me. My number and my email. I'm sharing the park director that I worked with at Sunken Meadow. He is wonderful. He is so down to brainstorm. That's his email. That's his phone number. And that's my resource page again. So where I'm going to put all the things that I make, all the assets. And like, follow, share, and subscribe. We're on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you so much, Christine. We have about 2 minutes. We have a couple of questions. First of all, I just want to say that your comment or question, adventure begins at your library, but where does it lead, was gorgeous and poetic. So thank you for that reminder. There are some really lovely comments, but because we only have a minute before our next one, I want to get to a question here. So someone asks, are you having any lead-up activities where patrons can make a headband or other wearable projects? I guess to wear at the parade.
That's a beautiful idea that I didn't think of. That's a really sweet idea where we help like put together what they're going to wear in anticipation. I wish I thought of that, but we're planned out for June, May. We're already planned out for May program, so I don't think I can. Maybe a pop-up.
Yeah, but that is a really great idea.
Great idea.
We have another question here. Well, it's sort of a comment, but also saying, can I suggest not using latex gloves since latex is a common and progressive allergen? So that's definitely something to think about going forward. But, and someone else asks, does everyone have to have their own pass or pay to get to Sunken Meadow?
Oh, I didn't mention that. So, right. So we're having it on May 17th. Which is the weekend before Memorial Day weekend. So this isn't exactly a summer program, but this way we can get to Sunken Meadow State Park without any parking fee. If it's in the summer and they're busy season, they're like, no, we can't accommodate. And they always reject any sort of requests for walks or runs, and a parade would count as a walk run. So we are permitted as long as we're not during those busy summer months. Thank you. It was a great question. I forgot to mention that.
That's awesome. That's really, really smart timing. Christine, thank you so much for presenting this morning. And thank you for kind of creating, well, not kind of, for creating that living space where you're going to update everyone going forward on what's happening.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to seeing all these great photos from this event. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, and now we are going to move on to our last presentation of our first hour. That's right, there are three hours of presentations. So our last presentation of our first hour is Patty Jackman from Middle Country Public Library, who will be presenting the Indoor Library Hike.
All right, great. So I'm Patty Jackman. I'm a library assistant in youth services at Middle Country Public Library. And we have a museum area that is outdoor adventure themed. So we're creating an indoor library hike to go along with that exhibit. Next slide, please. So where to start in creating an indoor library hike? The first thing I did was I looked at examples of outdoor hiking maps. They're also called trail guides. There are different styles to trail maps. Some are simple and some are more complex. They usually have a line or a path to follow, a map key, a compass for direction, scale to give distance, and symbols on the map for different points of interest. And I like the ones just personally where the trails were given both a shape and a color to identify them. It just kind of helped me out a little bit. Next slide, please. When you look at hiking trails, there are 4 different kinds of trails. One is a loop trail with a start and end at the same location. An out and back trail starts and ends at the same location, but you follow a single trail. So you kind of go out to a point and then return along the same route. A point to point is usually longer and may have different points along the way. And then a lollipop trail is sort of when you use an out and back trail to connect to a loop trail. So it just basically looks like a lollipop. So in your library, think about how many trails you would like to have in your library, what you want a way for patrons. Do you want your patrons to sort of loop around your children's floor? Is there maybe a point of interest like a fish tank or a library pet that you could use as like an out and back point for a trail? And think about where you want to start your trail. Does your trail start at the reference desk or someplace else? Next slide, please. Out in nature, there are different kinds of trail markers. Trail markers, or blazes, they're sometimes called, come in different formats, shapes, and colors. Sometimes they're directional. They show you which way to go. They can be either permanent or temporary. And I felt that combining shapes and colors helped with early literacy. So here are some examples of what they look like out in nature. Obviously, we don't have trees to put trail markers on, but we do have shelving, columns, and walls. So to think about where you're going in your library with it and where you might be putting your trail markers. Next slide, please. After you sort of do your little research on what's out there, look at your own library and discuss the possibilities. Take a look at the floor plan of the library. If you have any points of interest, do you want to travel them to an area in fiction? Do you want to travel them to nonfiction, picture books? Do you have a special feature? You know, like what's the amount of adventure that you want your patrons to have? Next slide, please. So creating a map, I was lucky enough that our floor plan for the library is on our online catalog. So if a patron here is looking for a book, they can click this little map it feature on our online catalog and the map comes up. So I was able to cut and paste that, copy it and paste it, and I uploaded it to a drawing program that I'm familiar with. I use Publisher, but you could use whatever drawing program that you're comfortable with. If your library doesn't have an online floor plan, you could ask your custodial department. They probably have one, or someone in administration. You can make a photocopy of that floor plan and draw your trails by hand. So depending on what your library has and how big a library you have, what your resources are, you can kind of scale it one way or another. Next slide, please. Creating trail markers. I use Canva a lot, and I was able to find these sort of hexagonal shapes in Canva. And then I like the idea of using both the shape and the color for the trail markers. So we have our blue circle loop trail. We have our red square out and back trail. And when the weather is nice, we will add our yellow triangle nature trail. And I was able to make these where sometimes the arrow points left, sometimes it points right, sometimes it points straight ahead. And then, so because we haven't done this yet, the plan is to print them on cardstock and then laminate them. If you have other things in your library, you can probably think of something to use your Cricut for and Cricut them and on vinyl and stick them on to your surfaces. Some of you have a makerspace, maybe they can be etched into something. I know they make those like little wooden tree cookies. Maybe you can etch something into them. Those would make really cute trail markers. And then we use Scotch 3M adhesive strips. I like the Velcro ones, and that we can use to stick them on either the columns or the shelving. Next slide, please. So other ideas, you can think about what works in your library. Since we are using this as part of our museum corner exhibit, it's a children's exhibit that's going to be focusing on camping, fishing, hiking, paddling, and leave no trace ethics. So we are starting our hikes from our museum area, and it's just going to be a passive activity. They'll get their trail map while they're in there. They can pick up their little hiking backpack while they're in there, and then we lead them around. The blue loop trail in our library leads them to our animal books. So if you look way down at the bottom of the screen, there's like a little icon with a deer on it. That is the picture books that are animals. And then up at the top of the screen, that same little icon is where we have animal books in nonfiction. Our red out and back square trail leads them to our boat. We have a boat that the kids like to sit on and read, so it leads them there and back. You can do different things. One way you can do prizes or a scavenger hunt is to have patrons pick up paper tokens along the trail that then they can bring to your youth services reference desk and trade them in for a small prize. We've done things like that in the past with scavenger hunts. And then at the bottom of our trail map is this little box with some safety information. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I hope it helps with some of the activities in our library. You know, and sort of just a gentle reminder to both the parents and the children to please do not run on these trails. Cost-wise, it really didn't cost anything. It's just paper and cardstock and laminating things that we already have here. And planning-wise, it just took a little time. I kind of keep going back in until I like it to look a certain way, but it could really be done fairly quickly. So thank you very much. This is my contact information, Jackman Patricia at mcplibrary.org. And thank you. Hope you like it.
Thank you so much, Patty. This is really so cute. I love the using the real markers, what they would actually look like as far as a trail map. I did not know that there were 4 different types of trails, so thank you for enlightening me with that information today. I scribbled them down, but please email me that later. I absolutely love that. You have given me some new knowledge here. We have just some comments in the chat. Someone is saying that they do, they don't have a bigger library, so they do something similar with their story walks. Mary also shared that their libraries had a make your own trail mix program before the expedition, which is really, really cute.
That's cute.
And yeah, there's some other great comments in here. So Patty, thank you again for spending your morning with us and preparing this. And I can't wait to see what it all looks like when it's up and running.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, folks, we are at the end of our first.
Welcome to Hour 2. My name is LJ Martin, and I am the youth coordinator at the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Library System. I'm going to be with you for the next hour, introducing our great, fantastic presenters that are coming up here. And we're going to jump right into it with Barbara Radigan from Pulteney Free Library, who's going to be talking to us about children's summer adventures. So over to you, Barb, and we got your slides up now.
This is our children's summer adventure from the Pulteney Free Library on Keuka Lake. And next slide, please. This was 3 weeks in July with 2 days each week. And our sessions lasted an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe a little longer. We tried to have an instructor on Tuesdays, and Wednesdays were for crafts and activities. And we decided on 2 themes of nature and Native Americans. And we wanted a camp feel to the program. We wanted to provide lunch before the program started, and we worked with ProAction of Yates and Steuben to make this work. And it was aimed at school-age children, and we had 2 older kids helping as volunteers. Next slide, please. The first Tuesday was Native American foods, and this was presented by a SNAP Ed nutritionist from Cornell Cooperative Extension. She came back the next Tuesday and did garden to table. And our third Tuesday was rocks, gems, and dino tracks. And we have a local rock guy who presented this program. Next slide. Pulteney is a small rural town on Keuka Lake. Our population is just a little over 1,200. Our school is 9 miles away. We have no business district and no agencies to collaborate with. So we get a little creative. We usually collaborate with our fire department, ambulance car, auxiliary, and the 2 churches in town. But that wasn't quite right for this program. So we worked on some other partnerships. The idea for the program came from a board member. We started with a planning team that consisted of 2 board members and myself. In 22, our community garden, which is just across the road from the library, was a stop for Steuben County's veggie van. And while there, they had the SNAP Ed had a table set up. And so I was picking up brochures and talking to nutritionists, thinking about what we could do with the library and SNAP Ed. And it led to a nutrition station that they set up at the library. And she came in monthly to update it. And I talked to her about possible programming, but she came from quite a distance, and with the hills around the Finger Lakes, we wanted to have enough people in attendance to make it worth her while to make the trip. Next slide. SNAP Ed has programs for all ages. And so we were able to look at their programs and customize it to fit our needs. So the kids were making 3 Sisters soup, and they used plastic knives for cutting. And all the food and equipment were provided by SNAP Ed. Next slide. Before the soup making, she did a presentation on local Native American nations and a talk about nutrition. We have a big meeting room, and so we had plenty of space to be able to do all sorts of activities. Next slide. On Wednesday, we did Native American crafts. Cornhusk dolls were really popular. They had lots of fun making them. We had girl dolls, we had boy dolls, we had all sorts of things. Next slide. And they love having their picture taken. Next slide, please. So the following Tuesday was garden to table, and the group walked to the community garden. They had to go as a group. Pulteney has no sidewalks, so we had to cut across the lawn and go with the adults. And the nutritionist talked with them about growing food. We timed this for mid-July, hoping that there would be some veggies at the garden that they could pick, and there were. So they were able to pick some things and then brought them back, and they made veggie faces. Snap Ed supplied all the extra veggies that were needed. Next slide, please. And she talked to them about food groups and had various hands-on activities. They had a lot of fun picking out their food group and placing it on the mat on the floor. Next slide. Our third Tuesday was an open program of rock jumps and dino tracks. And Bill Chapman, our local rock guy, presented this. And we had opened it up to the community, not just the kids that were in the program. Next slide. He has an incredible collection of rocks and gems and lots of things. And he enjoyed answering all the questions. Next slide, please. One of the things he did was he had a black light and he passed one of the minerals, one of the rocks around the room. And then he took the black light and had kids come up and show their hands. And you could see them fluoresce under the black light. And he brought in the idea that's how germs are passed around. So it was really nice to have a little bit different look on that. He also brought his home-built sloughs for panning for treasure. And each child was given a bag and they sand and treasures, and they used the sloughs. Next slide, please. Treasures were then brought inside and spread out to see what we had. Then we served ice cream. They loved looking over everything. Next slide, please. On craft days, we had several crafts planned. We had backup crafts we didn't use just in case. And these are some of the ones we did. Next slide. The solar glasses we passed out, and the kids particularly did like looking at the sun, but they really got a kick out of looking away from the sun and seeing that everything was black. Next slide. We did seed bombs, we painted rocks. We have a beautiful patio, lots of places to work outside. Next slide. Our last day was a field trip to Saunders Finger Lakes Museum for kayaking. Next slide. We recruited a lot of volunteers, especially for craft days. And we were lucky to get some who were teachers, and that was really helpful when we were painting rocks. A volunteer drove to the school 9 miles away to pick up the lunches, and we needed volunteers for kayaking. Next slide. Planning. We started early, picked our themes and our planners. We reached out to several Native American councils, but this limited success. They either didn't respond or the cost was way out of our budget. $350 for a program to make cornhouse dolls just didn't work for us. Kids could only sign up for the program if they had a signed parental release form. And we knew we needed more volunteers to help with the crafts, and we kept some in reserve. Surveys with stamped returned envelopes were mailed out to parents after the program. Next slide. Cornell Cooperative Extension. I worked ahead of time with nutritionists to develop the presentations and to develop the connection. And the great thing was food supplies, utensils were all included. We contacted the school to find out how we go about serving lunches, because we had not done this before. Our local rock guy had presented a program in the past and was delighted to return. And Saunders Finger Lakes Museum, we had 2 volunteers visit the museum to work out how the kayaking program would work. Next slide. Funding. Keuka Area Fund, we have received grants from them before, and this was an out-of-funding cycle request. So our board president called to ask them if there was possibly any money available, and someone had unused funding. I can't comprehend that, but they did, and that completely covered the cost of kayak. The Foundation for Southern Tier Libraries, we had asked for craft supplies for this program. And we also had donations, as there was a cost associated with the treasure bags for the sleuths and a volunteer pay. Next slide. This summer, we're thinking of possibly something with, we have several Civil War reenactors here. We also have some youth involved in timber sports, and we have heard that people would like the rock guy to come back and possibly work on the idea of turning rocks into cabochons for jewelry. We did have 3 of the kids came back the following day after the rock presentation, and they were wearing jewelry they had made from the rocks they got in their bag. I'm very proud of them. This year we will do name tags, and we have a button maker, which I keep trying to remember the kids call it tins. They don't deal in buttons. And they will design their own name tag. Next slide. And here's my contact information.
All right, Barb, that was a lot of great information and really good programming working with your community. We do have a couple questions that came up in the chat for you. Dana asked, can you tell us what the Three Sisters soup is, and is it based on Native American folklore?
Yes, it is. It was corn, beans, and squash, I believe. I didn't actually have any because we kept the library open during this, and you let the kids flow over. One of the boys liked the soup so much he had 3 bowls.
Oh, wow.
And another of the boys decided soup was really boring. So the kids came over into the library and played over here while the soup was boiling. But it was a really great presentation. The nutritionist we had not put this together, but there was someone else in her department who had, and she knew about it. So she got that out and updated it for us.
Oh, that's great. The next question is about your rock guy. The kids seem to like him, as you said, and someone was asking, can you share the contact for him?
Ask them to email me and then I can.
Okay. So Nicole, if you just, in the private chat, you contact Barb there. And then Kate asked, how many responses did you get from the surveys that you mailed out?
I think we had 7 or so. We also had one of the board members it was her idea. She was working with we had a couple homeschool families, and she also approached them recently to look at what we want for next year and what. So the response was pretty good. We were getting a lot of response too from the parents during the program because sometimes they'd stay and participate, particularly the day the rocks were here.
Oh, that's good. And then Dana asked, where are Timber Sports located?
Timber Sports is actually a sport, and it's not a thing. We have several high school and college students and adults in Pulteney who participate in this. So it is things like climbing a telephone pole as a tree or something. They work with hatchets, they work with chainsaws. We have one of the adults in Pulteney actually is an international competitor and has gone to Australia to compete in this. Some of the colleges, I know the college in Canandaigua has a team that goes out and competes, and one of the girls lives in Pulteney. So we're hoping that we can draw on some of their expertise. We haven't really, this was just brought up at the end of the program. So we haven't really started planning for next year. But
Oh, that's great. Thanks for the clarification on
Yeah.
timber sports.
we look around our community and try and see, we try and pull on we have a lot of talent in Pulteney. And
That's
we try
great.
and maximize and try and use who's here.
That's the way to do it. Tapping in your local community is a great way to see what's available. One last real quick question, and then we're going to move on to our next presentation about how many children participated, Barb.
We planned for 24. We ran between 18 and 22.
That's great.
We had some drop-ins, and since we weren't up to max, we were able to take them, and it worked out very well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Barb. This was a great way to start
Yeah.
off our second hour, and a lot of ideas for everyone to consider and think about. I was so excited to jump right into Barb's presentation that I forgot to mention that if you've just logged in, please change your name to the name that you registered with. That helps our behind the scenes people tally who's here, and then it'll help your youth consultant to get the credit out is needed afterwards. And also, everything is being recorded and all the slide decks will be sent out afterwards. So if you miss something real quick, you will get a chance to go back after that is all finished and sent out. So we're going to move on to our next presentation, which is Early Learners Sensory Activities. Molly Cavering is presenting from Vestal Public Library. So your slides are being put up here, Molly, and over to you.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Molly Krevling. I'm over here at Vestal Public Library in Vestal, New York, way down in the southern tier, practically Pennsylvania, if you will. So I'm focusing on 0 to 5s. I feel that as I started in librarianship, when we do summer reading, a lot of it does fall on our elementary friends. And I have a lot of friends in the 0 to 5 range, and I've tried to figure out what is it that I can offer those early learners. So sensory is one of the biggest things I found with my little friends. So I had to kind of rethink about how sensory play is really what we hear. So I kind of rethought that and just emphasizing sensory learning. So I kind of want to think about that a little bit of, it's not just play, it's learning. So I'm ready for the next slide. All right, so there is a lot of benefits with what we can do with sensory learning. So it's working memory, problem solving, language skills, fine motor, developing what kids are working on while they play. So I can go over that piece. I just heard that the recording kind of paused, so I can just go over that blurb again. So there are benefits to sensory learning. It's play, but there's so much happening in those little brains, in those experiences, that this play is beneficial to those little hands, those little eyes, those ears. So, and the best thing I think about this kind of program for summer is you can adjust it to whatever scale you are. If you're a large library, a small library with a finite budget, you can pretty much do anything with this. So, and all my parents love to be able to do things at home, so it's replicatable. You can do this in a variety of ways. You can do it mess-free. You can make it as messy as you'd like. So you can do this really however is convenient to you, your library, and your patrons. All right, next slide. All right, so supplies is usually the biggest thing that people are thinking of that might get a little overwhelmed. It really doesn't have to be difficult. So with this theme, you can really, I like with this age group, you can do any kind of bulk thing. Like in the past, I've done feathers and done like a bird theme. So if you're doing camping, you can do all sorts of outdoor themes. Like if you use anything like beans, lentils, rice, corn, It's very earth colors. So if you're doing anything kind of camp vibe, so it's very fun for them just to have something that is also friendly to the mouth, because that is our friends age group. Anything is very curious and it just goes right in there. The best thing I've noticed with sensory bins is kids love just playing with the cups, the shovels, all the fun things in there. So think about those things. And think about your storage containers. It doesn't have to be an expensive table. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. The best thing I found was a plastic kiddie pool from the dollar store. And I filled that with dried corn for a preschool story time. My friends loved it. You can do all sorts of things with, like, you can fill it with water. You can fill it with any kind of filler you'd like. The things I would challenge you to think about if you are trying something with sensory is think about the variety of sensations and skills you're offering. Are you offering fine motor skills of where they have to use hand-eye coordination? And also, I encourage my caregivers to be heavily involved in this if you're doing anything, because they're right there to also help with hand grabbing if things are going in the mouth. But also it's a chance for them to encourage them about dialogue in the terms of, you're talking about sensations. Is this hot? Is it cold? Is it wet? Is it slimy? You know what I mean? Or counting. So, and this can all be modified for your older preschoolers, your littlest of friends who are maybe under the age of 1. But it's a chance for them to explore and learn some words and just have a really great chance to bond with their caregiver. All right, next slide. Okay, like I said, shopping suggestions. My first thing is be brave, check your storage hoard. I know you all have them. I have a closet, a bunch of things to go through. It really can be inexpensive. And you can use the things that you have had kicking around for a long time. So I encourage you to check what you have and be like, what could I do with this? So some of the things that I found to be helpful were even seasonal things. So I am someone who has a pretty finite budget that can be tight. So I love using stores that will take that tax exemption or coupons. So, and just how can I make my dollar stretch? So I offer a lot of that for my friends who may be in that same position, but if that's not a problem, that's fantastic. So like I said, like Easter eggs were popular for when I did my bird theme. The kids loved scooping up bird seed, putting in the eggs, or stuffing feathers into the eggs. They love that. Small plastic toys, if you're doing a theme, that's super helpful. If you do water animals, you can do sea life, you can do all sorts of creatures. Sand toys for if you're in a bin, bubbles, anything. My one thing I do really want to note is, like Michael's, those sensory bottles. I have a bunch of sensory bottles I keep in my library, just in the department all the time. They run for like 99 cents each. They were one of my favorite things to buy. You can buy them in bulk. So you can offer sensory stuff all the time and have it be mess-free. And I also think their activity kits and things like that make for really great prizes for that age group if you do age group prizes. So I want you guys to consider all the different things that you can buy. Consider just what you can use as alternatives. It doesn't have to be the table. Storage totes has been my go-to because it is multifunctional, because organization is a huge part of all the things that I buy, and I can put things back in that storage tote, so it's multifunctional, and you can always just empty it out when you need it for sensory stuff. My biggest surprise that I learned this year was Tractor Supply, which I think a lot of us, there's usually one nearby. I got, I think, like a 13-pound bag of dried corn for about $10. So that's something to think about if that's a good way that you get a lot of things and you can reuse these things later. Next slide. All right, so these are some of the things that I did from last year. I'm going to say something scandalous. We kind of ventured from not doing the CSLP theme last year. We forged a new path, and we did Forging New Paths as our theme last year. So these are some of the things that we did for my 0 to 5 friends. So you kind of see the overlay. So I'm going to tell you a secret about the magnetic fishing. Use super strong magnets. Molly found out from Pinterest that you need strong magnets. I ended up having to alternate and doing a different thing with actually hooking them using pipe cleaners. So use strong magnets. It was a lot of fun, though. The kids loved it. You can use butterfly nets to scoop up the little fish. I cut out craft foam fish just because you could throw them in the water. It was something I could reuse later for a story time. My counting bugs, you can see the directions over there. That was a take and make opportunity. So it's a squishy little bag you can slide. I made little ladybugs, and parents could count the ladybugs, and you can slide the little bugs to their flower. And a lot of the things that I find sensory wise, you can find on Pinterest. There's some really excellent blogs for special needs learning, neurodivergent learning. I found a lot of great sensory resources in those things. Sensory tables was really anything that you could find. I tried to do is theme things as much as possible. So nature wise, having birds, so like the bird seed, all that kind of fun things there. So the squishy bags were probably one of my favorite things you can do. I've done painting in a bag, and I like to say you can do sensational stuff, sensational sensory, or you can do sensory safe, which is just in a bag, or you can take it to do it sensationally, take it all out of the bag, make a mess. So it's really something fun for everybody, depending on how messy you want to get. So the other thing I want to touch upon is like the cereal bird feeder. I actually did that for 2 different age groups. So like my 0 to 3s, we did stringing Cheerios onto pipe cleaners, and we hung them outside for our birds at the library. Or you could say, you can take these home and help feed your animals at your house, or the squirrels usually. But we also did, for my older preschool friends, just taking cardboard tubes, rolling it in peanut butter. I did do a peanut allergy warning. I could not find another alternative besides peanut butter to roll for hold the bird seeds. So if someone has something to shout out in the comments, that would be awesome. But that went well. The kids loved being able to snack on the Cheerios while stringing their Cheerios on there. The collection bag was just a fun way to wrap up, just kind of, it was a take and make too. We have a lot of great local parks, and you can I pasted on that picture of the nature collection bag, and that's just so when they go for a walk, they can put whatever they find that looks fantastic in their bag, and they have an awesome collection to take home. All right, if you can do next slide. All right, so this is just a little bit of what it looked like for me. So I know someone earlier mentioned having like a sun canopy. I like doing things outside for the sake of just something different. So I like that sun canopy as well for my little fair-skinned friends who may get fried. So this is kind of what it looked like for me. I luckily had a water table that was donated to me. You can see that I got chalk. There's the different little storage bins. There's a picture of our bird feeders. You can see the Cheerio one was very popular. And so for me, like coming into sensory is thinking how play is so fundamental to our earliest learners. So think about this not just as like just play, think about it as the best time for the earliest learning. All right, next slide. All right, time for questions.
That was great, Molly. Thank you. Got a lot of chatter in the chat box here. We did have a couple questions come through. The first one is, can they get the handouts as printables? The slide decks will be shared, but those 3 printables that you had, would you be able to share those out?
Yep. If you want to reach out to me, I have all these things saved on Canva, so I can absolutely send these to you in email if that's easier. I have other directions for other take and makes I've done with sensory things. So there's a variety of stuff I've done that's similar that I didn't share necessarily in the slideshow. So I'm always willing to share.
That's great. And we appreciate you willing to share, everyone willing to share on this.
Just to interrupt for a second, my name is Janice. I'm from the Chester Public Library. Molly, I have to say, I was a preschool teacher for 18 years, and the things that you've made available for your young learners is so great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Great, kudos to you, Molly. The next question was, did you find one session got better attendance than any of the other ones?
Honestly,
morning, afternoon?
I would say this is just the pattern I've noticed with summer reading. Our library does it for 6 weeks. I garner the biggest attention the first like 4 weeks, and then it kind of peters a little bit. So trying to kind of alternate what you think might be like your high anticipation to kind of do that every other week, I think is the best way to keep that buzz going on what's next week. I also offer it 2 different times for my session, so I can hit those people who are like, all right, first thing in the morning, we got plans to go to the library. And then I think about my parents who want to interact with their kids, but they work till 5 or 6. So offering times to do it again in the evening. So it's just, I think I found that the morning sessions were the most popular with my littlest, but but also the absolute, I did love being able to see parents have the chance to have time to bond with their little ones if they have to work during the day.
Oh,
The
that's
parents
great.
were most appreciative of that time frame. So
Mhm.
think about just kind of offering that if you're able to do it. It is very solo librarian friendly. It's nice to have a buddy, but I think you need to also just put a little emphasis on your caregivers that this is a great time for you to have some time to learn and have fun with your kids.
That's great messaging. We got one last quick question for you here. Did you have any trouble with disruptive older siblings?
Honestly, not really. I have the older kids honestly were the best mentors. They were over there showing other kids, hey, look at, you can do this. Or, oh, look what you can do with this thing now. Like the water table was one of the best things that they were really, the older siblings kind of love helping the other little kids. And I
Aw.
didn't find that interruptive at all. If anything, it's like sometimes you just might have to say, oh, let's wait our turn, or let's try this station first, and then we'll come back.
Oh, that's great. Thank you again so much, Molly. That was a great intro into sensory and a lot of good chatter here in the chat box from you.
All right, thanks so much.
You muted yourself, LJ.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Just got in the habit of muting myself. Just a quick reminder that this is being recorded and we will be sharing the slide decks with everyone for all our presentations, which leads me to our next presentation, which is Make Me an Author, Book Creations with Elementary Students. And this is presented by Nina McBear from Prowling Free Library. So Nina, I'm gonna hand it right over to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Nina, as noted, and I am the Children's Program Coordinator at the Pauling Free Library in the Mid-Hudson Library System. We serve a community of about 8,000 people, so what I am talking about here works for us with our size, but I really think that it could work at any size library. For the last few years, we have run a kids book writing program called the Make Me an Author Club, and it is one of, I'm hearing that I can't be heard. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, but you're a little quiet, like you're back from the mic.
Oh. Let's see.
That's sounding better.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. But yeah, so we run a Make Me an Author Club, and it is really quite fun. It's for grades 1 through 6, and we focus on process over product, giving kids the experience of making a book, creating a story, without the pressure of having to have everything be perfect. So, next slide, please. We use Student Treasures publishing kits to create our books because their products are designed for students in classrooms and are really easy to use. The kits that we use include all the formatting you need to create a hardcover book that's bound and printed by the company, and they come back within 4 to 6 weeks. So we really love them. Next slide, please. I'm hearing that we still can't hear me. Sorry, everyone. My volume is on max.
For those who can't hear, can you turn up your volumes anymore on your side? That might help there.
Okay.
All right.
Keep going, or...
Yep, we'll just keep going and we'll problem shoot from there.
Okay. So depending on the summer and our staffing, I've run this program in 2 different ways. I've run it as a solo program and with kids working as a team. So I'll go into more detail about each one on further slides, but basically in the solo creation version of this club, kids write and illustrate their own book with lots of support from adults and teen volunteers. And in the team version, kids create one story as a group, while they then get to illustrate it on their own. So in both clubs, the focus is on creativity, but in the solo version, they do a lot more like on the ground writing practice, and in the teamwork version is a lot more collaboration practice. So regardless of whether they work individually or together, the process is really similar. They brainstorm and storyboard their ideas. They help write the story, make edits, illustrate, and create a cover page, title page, and about the author page. Next slide, please. When running the program solo, we cap our classes at 12 kids. The key is having enough help to support the kids as they work on their own. We really rely on a combination of staff, parents, and teen volunteers to provide support. All the participants need help with spelling and editing, and some need near constant attention if writing is not a big skill for them. We aim for about 1 helper for every 2 kids participating. Our teen volunteers are huge help in this because usually we have just 1 to 2 staff members, 2 hopefully, but not always. For the first 1 to 2 meetings of the program, kids brainstorm and storyboard. Each participant's book includes 7 lined pages for writing and 7 illustrations, and before we let them draft out their illustrations or their stories, they have to create their plans. Student Treasures produces printable templates for brainstorming and storyboarding, which you can see here and we use. Next slide, please. After planning, kids write their first drafts and start their illustrations. Since we focus on process, kids have a lot of autonomy about what parts of the book they want to spend the most time on, as long as they still finish other aspects of the project. While the kids work, volunteers edit what they have already finished or provide writing assistance, primarily fixing spelling errors and streamlining their plots. Then kids make the edits and write their final drafts. Next slide. The final few meetings are spent creating cover art and writing our About Me and title pages. There are page guides in the kits for these too. Here's a close-up of some final drafts, including cover pages. You can really see the variety in how much some kids wrote versus others. Before submitting their final drafts to the publisher, I also go through each book and clean up messy or illegible text and make sure their drafts are organized. Then we mail everything off and wait for our books. Next slide, please. When running the program as a team activity, I run the class without volunteers or additional staff, and we have 8 to 15 participants working collaboratively. It is a lot like GMing a D&D campaign or leading dramatic play for preschoolers, if you've ever done either of those things. Instead of writing their own stories, the kids create one story as a group, each contributing different details. Instead of using the individual planning pages, we spend the first 2 meetings discussing important story elements, like setting and characters. Then the kids vote as a group about what story elements should be. They all brainstorm and throw out ideas. Each child also gets to pick 1 to 2 minor details from what we've all brainstormed that they really want to be in the story. For example, in 2022, which is what this picture here is from, the group voted that our main setting should be Hawaii, but 2 kids also really wanted the story to feature the settings they had suggested, which were a castle and New York City. So we found little ways to mention those in the story. This allows each child to contribute even if their ideas aren't chosen as major plot points. Next slide, please. For the team to storyboard, I use butcher paper to outline what each of the 7 pages of the story will cover. On each page, I put a prompt based on pacing and the ideas that the kids had chosen as their core concepts. Then we verbally talk out what we want to have on each page as a group. The kids really build off each other's ideas, coming up with plans for what should happen on each page together, and adding in more details when prompted. Planning and storyboarding as a group runs half the meetings. Next slide. After all our storyboarding is done, I write up a draft of the story using the kids' plans. I try to use their exact phrasing whenever I can. At our next meeting, I read the draft aloud and the kids give me their opinions and group edits after each page that I read out. Even though I ghostwrite the story, the kids are the real bosses and they have the agency to vote on changes, and they're not afraid to share what they want to change. While I make their edits, they get started on their illustrations. They use the remaining meetings to work more independently. They draw 7 illustrations, a cover, and choose their own book title for their edition of the story. As you can see, they each personalize it in their own way. Next slide, please. Whether they write as a team or individuals, we always end with a celebration of the kids' hard work. When the books arrive, we host a book launch party for the kids to show off their books and celebrate with family and friends. It's a great way to bring families back into the library after summer ends and schedules get busier. We have games, snack, and short presentations by each kid about their favorite part of the book-making process or what they made. At the end, the kids get to take their newly published book home. We ask participants to bring treats if they are able, and about half the families do. I also buy some snacks and make decorations from supplies we have on hand to save money. Next slide, please. For the creation process, we primarily use supplies we already have in-house: printer paper, washable markers, pencils, erasers. I also recommend buying additional black markers because the kids use those up quickly writing their final drafts. Student Treasures asks that all final drafts be written out in black marker, so you definitely need a lot. The publishing kits we use include the paper you use to send in each child's final draft, but you can print more from their website, so it's really not a problem. Go through whatever you need to go through. Cost varies a lot depending on how many kids we enroll in the program, because each publishing kit, which is a published copy of each child's book, is $23 per publishing kit. That includes all the shipping and handling, the publishing costs, and they are really great about if there's a mistake sending you a new version. So even though the cost is kind of high per child, I really appreciate everything that they do to make it as easy as possible for us. And there's really not that many costs outside of the publishing kit. So I estimate that the total cost for the program is about $24 per child if we run it between 8 to 15 kids. In all, I probably spend about 2.5 hours a week on the program during the weeks we meet, and more in the prep and finalizing stages. Recruiting and training volunteers, if we use them, and finalizing the kids' projects for submission are the most time-consuming aspects of the program, but thankfully that labor happens outside the craziness of actually running summer programs, because we train volunteers before programs start, and then I wait to finalize and send in the drafts until after our programs have ended. It really helps a lot. Next slide, please. That's it. Thank you so much. I know that was a lot of information, so if anybody has questions after this that you think of, feel free to contact me.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nia. It was a great presentation, and thank you for sticking through the digital technology issues we always seem to have. A couple questions came through in the chat. The first one was, which format had more interest, the solo books or the team group book?
We get a lot of interest for both, actually. So I don't really, I haven't seen a difference, and I think that's because we cap it at such a small number. Like 15 kids at the most is really not too many for us to try to get. So usually there's not a huge difference in that. The kids seem to like the idea in theory of doing it on their own more until they find out they get to draw everything regardless, and then they're into it no matter what.
Oh, that's great. Do you at all display the books so the community gets to see them, or do the kids just take them once they come back and after the party?
Yeah, when they arrive the week before the party, we put them on display usually if we can. And then we keep them on display during the party, and the party is open to the public, so people from our community can come and join as well.
Oh, that's great. What a way to celebrate what they've created. And then Kate has asked, have you ever done a graphic novel style book?
Yeah, I've thought about it a few times. We would probably need to do that for an older audience. Some of the kids who have participated have since come in and shown me the graphic novels they've made. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
definitely interest in it. But I think it would be a lot more time to structure, because creating and overlaying the illustrations and the words would just be so much more time consuming for us.
That makes sense. And Renee asked, do you buy a book to add to your collection?
Yeah, sometimes we have, sometimes we don't. It depends on the cost. I was really lucky the first 2 times we ran this program, it was funded by a grant. So whenever the kids were interested, I added a copy to our collection. Most of them, surprisingly, are not that into that idea. I think they get kind of shy about it, but we did give them the option. But since it is kind of an expensive program, we don't always. I wish we could.
I can understand that. What was the company name again that you work with?
It's called Student Treasures Publishing, and it's all one word with 1 T. So the word student and then no T for treasures, and it's just Student Treasures.
All right. And then the last question here for during this time is, how often do you have participants not attend every session, or how do you handle any drop-offs?
Yeah, so there's always a little bit of that, and that's why we try to focus on the process over the product to a degree, because we really encourage people throughout the process and when they're signing up to focus on it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's made a lot of difference with the kids. You can see we've had a lot of kids do the program every year we've run it, and it's gone from them feeling hesitant about writing anything to writing full pages. We really try to, by having, especially when they do it one-on-one, having a lot of one-on-one help for them, or a lot of help, even if it's not one-on-one, really does help prevent drop-offs. We also say when we have people signing up in our registration that if they're doing the individual club, they have to commit to attending the majority of the sessions. So when we run it for 8 weeks, they have to commit to running and coming to at least 6. And if they can't, sorry, that's not the right program for them.
Oh, that's good though. I mean, it gets them, like you said, focused on the process. Thank you again so much, Nina, for this presentation. What a great idea. And I think a lot of people are going to run with this idea. So that in all brings us to the end of our second hour. 3 wonderful presentations, a lot of great ideas. We're going to go on to our break. We're going to start us off on our third and final hour. We have plenty more great programs to talk about, and we're going to start off here in a second. But just a reminder for all those who have popped in, please change your Zoom name to the name that you registered with. Again, that helps our behind the scenes people with attendance. And any questions that you have, if you could just put a Q in front of the question in the chat, that'll help us pick that out quicker and get our questions to our presenters. Speaking of, our next presenter is Dana Shea from Mahopac Public Library, talking to us stories and more, going on a bear hunt.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, very good. Yes, my name is Dana Shea. I am I'm a library assistant in the youth service area of our Mahopac Public Library, is how it's Mahopac. That's how it's pronounced. No, that's absolutely fine. And I'm going to talk to you about going on a bear hunt. Basically, I came up with this idea, if you can believe it, is I had a lot of leftover paper towel rolls that I needed to use for a craft. And how I got those is I asked the fellow coworkers to bring in paper towel rolls when they were empty. And I ended up with a bunch. So I started looking up crafts that I could do with the paper towel rolls. And I came across these binoculars that I just wanted to use. I thought they were very cute and I wanted to use them. And it was fall and I was getting a little tired of doing things with leaves. And how many leaves, pumpkins, apples can you do? By then, bears were probably hibernated, but the kids didn't seem to mind at all. So that's how the planning process went and everything came about. As far as the cost, well, with leftover, paper towel rolls, there wasn't really much to add. And I have another slide that just shows what I did spend some money on. So yes, next slide, please. All right, so everybody's aware of the traditional book. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we go back to the second slide? There we go. Everybody's used to the traditional book. We're going on a bear hunt, written by Michael Rosen, illustrated by Helen Oxenberry. Very cute book. Obviously, it's been around forever. About 5 siblings who decide to go on a bear hunt over a beautiful day, and they encounter all these obstacles which they must get through. In the end, they come across the bear, run back home, and hide, and decide they're never going to do that again. Again, a very cute book. I didn't choose to use this book for my story time program. We read a story, we do a craft and an activity. And I was going to already play the song for when we actually did the bear hunt. So I used this, and since the book is the song, I just didn't want to do the same thing. So I used this next book and the next slide, which was very cute. It's called Going on a Bear Hunt by LaTanya Richardson, illustrated by Matthew Fields. And this was a lot of fun too. 2 city boys who went to go visit their aunt and uncle in the woods of Louisiana. And they started getting bored of doing the country things that they were doing. So their uncle devised this wonderful plan of going on a bear hunt, but also incorporated all these other fun activities for the woods, fishing, catching butterflies, and getting real honey from a beehive. So the book was really cute. After that, we made our binoculars, which would be the next slide, please. We made our binoculars and materials I put down in 2 parts. One is for the binoculars craft, very simple. 1 paper towel roll cut in half or 2 toilet paper rolls, some colored paper to cover it, the 2 strips of tape just to finish off the edges, yarn, which is why you would need the hole punch to put the yarn around it, stickers to decorate, stapler to staple them together. And they worked out very cute. I have a pair right here. Here's the pair right here. They did work out very cute. The kids loved them and they actually found it very easy to make. And while they were doing that, I just ran out to get our bear hunt ready, which is the materials on the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so the hunt, very simple. All I spent money on was the green door fringe that I hung over the door, so that would be the tall wavy grass, threw a blue plastic tablecloth on the floor to resemble the water and a brown one to resemble mud, as the book goes. And I hid 1 stuffed bear inside our puppet theater that we have, a little puppet house. I threw a blanket over the top of it, made it look like a cave or pretend it was the cave with the bear inside. And that was it. We started on our bear hunt, playing with our binoculars in hand, listening to the song. So again, these are Dollar Tree, dollar store buys, which totaled about $5 if anything. And on the next slide, you can see pictures of how the bear hunt went, coming through the doorway with the tall grass, the kids using their binoculars, simply walking over the water. I wasn't sure if that was going to be as fun for them. And it just, I was thinking, how could I do this better? But that just worked just fine. And then the last picture of the mud. And then the next slide has some final pictures of us getting to the cave, reaching in for that bear. And when I took it out, they all screamed. I guess they weren't expecting it, and I chased them all the way back to the room. And they had a really good time doing so with that. By the next slide, I had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't just have to be the same bear hunt. I noticed that there's other books out there that follow the same thing. That suggestions going on a book hunt, a lion hunt, the ghost hunt and pumpkin hunt are obviously Halloween related, but they could still be used, and then going on a treasure hunt as well. And I think I am going to use one of these in the future because it was very fun to do. And the last slide has my info right there, and that's it. So does anybody have any questions? Is that
all right, Dana? Thank you. Yeah. What a cute and creative but low cost program, and it sounds like the kids really enjoyed that.
They did.
A lot coming in the chat. That's so cute. It's adorable, super adorable. So kudos for that. One question has come through from Gloria. How old was the age group of the kids he worked with?
Oh, sure. 3 to 5 years old. And with the parent, they were able to do this together. So the parents are in the room at the time. So this was for ages 3 to 5.
Oh, that's great. Christina asked, how long does it take to make the binoculars with kids at that age?
I was actually surprised. I gave them the instructions of how to do it. I left just to put the door fringe was already on, just to put the plastic down, the tablecloths, and put the bear inside. And when I came back, they were basically done. I had them start lining up. So we're talking like anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, because there was some still putting their stickers to decorate. I didn't think it. I was impressed that they were that done with them, and that's how we did that. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. For the decorations and that, did you like raid your own craft room, or did you get those from the Dollar Tree as well?
Yeah. For behind me?
No, for the binoculars.
Oh, for the binoculars. Oh, yeah. We just had our craft room. So, the paper towel roll, just colored paper. We have duct tape that I cut into strips. And then, of course, the yarn we always have. And then just the decorating with stickers. Just made it that easy, and they enjoyed that.
Oh, that's great. And how many kids did you have going on your bear hunt?
The first group, before we took the pictures, I had a few more. I'd say I had like 12 or so. By the second group, I had about 8. But yeah, and then we did have it air on Instagram or something. I felt bad because then the moms that didn't come to that class that day, they said, "Oh, we missed the bear hunt." I'm like, I didn't even know it was being filmed, to be honest. But yeah, so
those are great groups to take around the library. And
Yes.
what one do you think you're going to do this year with the adventure theme? Or are you going to do all of them?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. I have like about 6 sessions, 6 weeks I'll have to do. So I do like to put another hunt in there somewhere, not sure where. But yeah, with the adventure theme, that's such a great theme. I'm still playing it through in my mind.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Still great comments coming in. Love the bear hunt, especially the
Thank
bear
you.
behind you. Was that the bear
Yeah.
that you used?
That's him.
Does he have a name?
Very, very non-scary. No, actually, no, it's just a bear at the library. Very non-scary, but it was cute.
Oh, that's great. And
Yes.
coming in, the classic story, perfect, simple and fun. I think that's the brilliant part of this. The kids had so much fun with it, but it's fun, it's simple and easy for you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. That's a great sign.
All right. We
Okay.
had one last
All right.
question come in, and then we'll let you off the hook. Great presentation.
Okay.
Can you use the non-living things to hunt for, like lost underwear or anything?
Oh,
Funny.
that's some idea there. That's really funny. I don't know. You can go wherever you want with that thing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dana. This was a great program and a great way to
Yeah.
kick off this hour.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks again. As a reminder, we are recording this and we will be sending out all the slide decks to everyone. So you will be able to getting this information here after, a little bit afterwards. Last call, if you would like to get counted for attendance, if you haven't changed your Zoom name to the name that you registered with, please do that now so we can give you the kudos and credits for attending and getting all these ideas. That's going to bring us into our next presentation with Megan Gillander about Parks Passport, and she is from the Oneida Public Library.
Oneida.
I knew I said that wrong, but thank you.
No worries.
Over to you, Megan. Let's hear about Parks Passports.
Thanks so much. So, as you know, my name is Megan Gillander. I'm the Youth Services Coordinator here at the Oneida Public Library, and we love partnering with our community organizations. So we partner with our Parks and Rec department here in our city quite often, and this is going to be our 3rd summer doing our Parks Passport. So if you could flip to the next slide. If you are interested in doing this, how to get started is to first just get to know the people in your Parks department. I honestly couldn't even tell you how I met up with our Parks and Rec people, just being involved around town with my own kids. But just get to know them, see what they do, get to know the park spaces in your area, and just keep an eye on what they're doing, and it'll help form a bond. It'll help form an easy connection of ways that you guys can work together. Next slide. So what we did for our Parks Passport is we chose 5 parks in our city to visit, and we are fortunate enough to have more than 5 parks in Oneida. So not too many more, a couple more. So we've rotated each year. So we make sure that, over 2 years we hit every park, and maybe 1 or 2 don't get hit each year. And at each park, we have stories, we have some park history information, and an activity. Next slide. Thank you. So this is what our passport looks like for our kids when they arrive at the park. They get handed this. So it's not something that you have to register for or be at every session. If it's your first time and it's our last one, you'll still get a passport. So they each get a passport that looks like this with the park name and the date, and I stamp it or put a sticker on it each time. Next slide. So when they get their stamp or their sticker on their passport, they also get a raffle ticket. And after I read the story for our event, I'll draw one of the raffle tickets. And it's something very simple, just a little excitement for the kids. It's a free ice cream cone at a local ice cream place or one of our candy bars that we sell here. Just a little something to make it exciting for them. And I just do one. And the kids are excited and nobody gets upset. So that's lovely. Next slide. Our cost is not that much, honestly. It really depends on your budget and what you want to do at your park, what the things that you want to see happen. So some of the things that we've done at the parks, we're so fortunate here. We have a local teen who is amazing at magic and balloon animals, like blows my mind. So we had him come and do balloon animals with a piggy and elephant theme, Mo Willems, at one of the parks, and he made literally piggy and elephant. It was awesome. And he charged like $50 for a session for just really cost of balloons. Again, the prizes could be anywhere from $1 to $5 a week, depending on what you do. We did have a local person who has exotic animals come a couple of years, and he was around $100. And each time we have a craft. So, again, it's up to how much you have sticking around in your library or how much you might need to purchase. I mean, we spent at most $25 per year on craft supplies. So this can be very doable under any budget. Next slide, please. So planning, we literally took an hour meeting and planned out our whole summer. But again, I already had an existing relationship with our Parks and Rec. We work really well together. We're very much on the same page with what we want to do. But if you haven't had that relationship or you haven't thought about this before, I suggest have a meeting with your Parks and Rec department and really just get to know each other. Make it a half hour or hour, whatever. Just kind of get to know each other, talk about what works with your groups, what doesn't work, and then make a plan to meet again, in another week or two. Just take some time to think about what you each said and, meet again. Then you can start planning out your summer. Next slide, please. Our attendance was really well. They asked to do it again. The first year, they're like, "Oh, are you going to do this next year?" The Parks and Rec guy and I looked at each other. We're like, "Sure, yeah, absolutely. If you guys want it, we'll do it again." And then again last year, they were asking for it again. They're like, "You're going to do this again next year, right?" We're like, "Yep, absolutely." So now it's going to be a regular thing for us. Our attendees, it averaged 20 to 25. Sometimes it was up over, 40. There was one or two that it was maybe 15. But we were very happy. We're in a small city of around 10,000. So these numbers made us quite happy. Next slide, please. So things that we did, the different activities that we did. We are fortunate enough to have some archery programs locally. Our Parks and Rec department does it. Our YMCA does it. So there is some interest here. So we did an archery one. We were at one of our parks that has a really big field, and we took all kinds of safety precautions. They went out in small groups and they were supervised. We do nature scavenger hunts and hikes. Two of our parks have little nature trails. So I'll give them, literally just find a leaf, find a cloud, find an ant, they'll do the little scavenger hunt. We had a kickball game. We made fairy doors. We had the exotic animals. Dino fossils were actually just little plastic dinos that we froze inside balloons. Then you took the balloon off and just set the ice out along the trail, and then they found them and they got to bust into them with rocks and things and keep the little dinos. They thought that was fantastic. Our balloon animals, even just a playground at a park. It's just a super fun time out at the park. Next slide, please. This is just an example of our poster, just trying to make it really fun and vibrant and bright to catch attention. We put each of our locations and what we're doing at each location. Next slide. So just some photos. This is part of our gang heading out to the field for kickball. And I love this photo. I love that you can tell they're excited. They're running out. They're ready to go. Next slide. So this was our teen doing some balloon animals. This year was paired with the archery. You can see it in the background. Like I said, we broke it into smaller groups. So part of the group went and did the archery. The other part got to do their balloons. Then we swapped. Drew even made a bow and arrow balloon. He blows my mind. Next slide, please. A little bit closer up of the archery. It was really cool. We had a teen who competes with archery, and you can see her there. She's there to help the kiddos too. Next slide. A picture of our scavenger hunt I was talking about, and our crew making the fairy doors that we set out along the trail, which they really, really liked the fairy doors. It was so simple. Just the colored popsicle sticks. We got the bigger ones and some glue and some markers, and they had an absolute ball. Next slide. It's just my information. So yeah, we really enjoyed doing this program. As I said, they've asked for us to do it again, which, I mean, what more can you ask for, right? Like, it's super fun. It gets us out of our, out of our building, and gets the Parks and Rec out of, the rec department building, gets our community into our parks, which I think is just such a great thing for kids to just be out there in nature and in the world and experience things.
That's great, Megan. Thanks for that presentation. And like you said, what a better way to know it's successful than having people ask for it year after year. We did have a couple questions come in. The first one was back to the passports. Are the passports printed in the library? Do you have them done anywhere else? And is it one piece of paper or more like a little booklet for the passport?
Yeah, so it's Canva. Gotta love it. I make it all. I make everything on Canva. I just print it on cardstock, and so it's just a quarter sheet on cardstock. And I forgot what's the rest of the question. No, it's not a booklet. It's just that little quarter sheet, and I just do literally a small sticker or a stamp by each date that they come.
Perfect. Did you do this during the week or on weekends?
Oh, great question. We do it during the week. So it's usually a Thursday from like 1 to 2 p.m. Just a little mid-afternoon, get out and get moving over the summer. We do it, like I said, it was 5 locations, so for 5 weeks.
Oh, that's good. Did you require registration for any of the?
We did not. Like I said, most of our activities are pretty minimal, I guess, setup, really. We didn't have, supply-wise, we didn't have to worry too much. We were kind of prepared. We kind of had a sense of how many kiddos were going to be coming based on the last couple of years.
Well, that's good. What kind of support did you get from the rec department? Providing tables or anything else that they helped with?
Oh, absolutely. So they are in charge of our parks. So they always make sure everything's ready to go. So yes, so the example of the fairy doors, they brought all the tables and chairs. I just brought the craft supplies. So it was a really great partnership. We read our book, we did our fairy doors, then we walked in through the nature trail, and the kids set their doors out next to the trees. When we are, I'm trying to think, what were the archery was all their supplies, because they have an archery thing going on at our rec center. So yeah, it really is a partnership. It goes, if we have something that we're paying for, like Drew for the balloons or the exotic animals, we kind of share the responsibilities for that.
That's great. And what a great partnership too.
Yeah.
With using balloons, did you worry about pieces of balloons being left in the park, or did you just do a cleanup and make sure you took out everything you brought in?
Honestly, that's what I was doing while they were all getting into their dino fossils. I was kind of going around picking up things. We really just take care to clean up when we're done, because that is something that we're concerned about. Absolutely. We want our parks left nice, and we want it safe for everybody who's visiting. So yeah, we just clean up after we're done.
Oh, that's great. Another question came in. What were the prizes for filling out the passports?
The prizes? It was just the raffle. So once they got their, if they filled the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have anything like that. It was just getting to come and do the activities. It's so hard. Prizes for me are I go so back and forth, because I love the incentive, which is why I do the little raffle drawing, but also I really want kids to just come and experience things and do things for the joy of that. And we didn't have any issues with that. Like, nobody was ever bothered that they
Oh,
did
good.
win the raffle. Nobody was ever upset that there wasn't something for completing them all. I haven't had any issues with that.
Oh, that's good. So great program for the community. Great partnership. Love this program. Thank you, Megan,
Thanks.
for presenting to us. Love that.
Absolutely.
All right. We're moving on to our next one. As a reminder, we are recording. The recording will be sent out along with all the slide decks, so you'll be getting all the information. And we're going to move on to Sherry Taylor from Earlville Free Library. She's going to be talking to us about Library Quest. So I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
Hi, my name is Sherry Taylor. Next slide, please. When I became the director of my very small library, which is chartered to serve 791 people in 2005, summer reading program consisted of 2 paid performers and a reading log. If you finished your log, you got a prize, and that was it. At the time, my children were young. I was not satisfied with that. And so with the counsel of someone from our library headquarters, I designed Library Quest. Next slide, please. Library Quest is very flexible. This is a game you can manage however you want. You can have multiple age questions. You can have only one set of questions and just cherry pick ones for smaller kids, however you want to do it. You can have a prize structure based on whatever you want to do. It can be, they can earn prizes as they cross certain places on your board, or you can develop a pay scale and give them library bucks, we called them, that they can save up and use later. They can play every day. They can play once a week. They can play whatever rules that you want it to be. They can have 1 turn a day or multiple turns a day. And or you can give them the ability to earn an extra turn. Next slide, please. The best part about the game is that they will be learning about the library. The majority of my questions were about the library, learning how to find things in the library, learning about the Dewey Decimal System, learning how the library operates, how long do things check out, what magazines do we have, what newspapers do we have, how often do they come, etc. Next slide, please. So I know you're all sold on having Library Quest at your library because it is so much fun and so flexible, and it can meet your needs, whatever they are, whether you're a big library or a small library. So what do I have to do to get started? The first thing you need to do is develop some rules, decide who can play, how many times they can play, can they earn extra turns or not, and so on. So you need to kind of develop in your mind, at least, if not on paper, what your game is going to look like, what your prize structure is going to be. If you're going to have one, it's certainly not mandatory. Next question, next slide, please. So then you have to write your questions. I have questions all written out. I'm happy to email them to you if you request them. My information will be at the end of my presentation. But please don't try and write all the questions yourself, especially if you're a bigger library. Talk to the other people who maybe work in the youth services department and deal with the children, or somebody who does programming and is dealing with the children. Find out what things kids are asking or not kids are asking that you want kids to know, and use those as your questions so that they are getting those questions answered, maybe even before they even thought to ask them. You can print them on postcard paper, which you can buy from Avery. It's like perforated and you can just print it on there. I have a template for that too, if you wish. Although if you use Microsoft Publisher, you can find a template for almost anything in there, or you can go on avery.com if that's where you buy your paper from. And they have a free program that you can use to set things up on there. Just put in the number from your paper that you got. You want to make sure that you have a list of questions all written out just in question form with their answers. And I recommend putting the answers in a different color format instead of having them be the same color as the questions. It makes it a little quicker and easier for your staff to find them. It's also a really good idea to have a cover sheet for that question page. Next slide. You need to get some dice. We started with your standard fuzzy dice that you would hang on your rearview mirror as pictured here in red, but eventually we graduated to some larger ones, which were really a lot of fun. Those yellow dice are 6 inches on each side. They're available on Amazon for varying prices depending on what you get. There's also some that are similar that are a little bit smaller and therefore will be a little less expensive. But it's a lot of fun to have these giant dice that the kids are tossing around your library. You just have to kind of make sure they don't get too excited and throw them into things that might get knocked over or into patrons. They might not appreciate it. Next slide, please. So you have to decide on your prize plan if you want to have one. You can see in these 2 slides, there are 2 different examples from different years of a special spot on the game board. So that when the children pass those spots, they get either an instant prize or they can earn bucks to later spend in a store. We did just instant prizes at first, and then we graduated to having bucks, was library bucks of some kind, creative bucks, star bucks, whatever the theme of the year was, we tried to come up with something that went with that. You could have adventure bucks or travel cash or whatever you wanted for the adventure theme. And then we had a store, which was actually just a large flat box that kids could buy prizes with their bucks from. So there was, stuff that they could get for $1, instant gratification if that was what they were into. But then we had some other stuff that cost more bucks that they could save their bucks up and cash them in later. And what we did for a lot of the bigger prizes especially was leftover prizes from previous years. You probably all have some of that kind of thing laying around. It's a great way to get rid of some of the stuff. I mean, maybe not if it's like theme printed, but if you had prizes left over from a previous year, it's a good way to use them up. Next slide, please. So you need a record keeping plan. We gave each child that registered an index card. It had their name on it, and we kept them all in a file box. And then each time they played, we recorded the date that they played, how many turns they had, what question numbers they were asked so that they didn't just get the same question every time, and the square number that they ended on. And then if they're saving their bucks, we would just paperclip them to the card for future use. That way they're not losing them and they're coming in and being like, well, I had $4, but I lost them because they're all right there in your index card box. Next slide. And then you have to build a game board. I'm not going to lie, this is kind of intense. I've had many, many lame muscles from crawling around on the floor for several hours putting down the game board. I have pictures from various years if you want to, before you do that, you can see on the left-hand screen there's a big arrow. That is pointing at a plunger. This was a brand new plunger, has never been in a toilet, but it's a really, really good way if you're using multiple colors of duct tape to keep all your duct tape with you while you're crawling around on the floor. Just saying. So you can scroll slowly through the slides of various game board pictures. Oh, sorry. This is not where they are. Never mind. Go back. I do have pictures of various years that will show up here in a minute. It's a really good idea to have a general idea where your game board's going to go in your library. So what I would do would decide where it's going to go, maybe make a little map of it, and then I would step it off or measure it off so that I knew approximately how many feet that game board covered. And then I would multiply that by 3. So it would give you both side rails and the cross rails. And it gives you a rough idea of how many feet of duct tape you need to buy, because you're going to need a lot. You can decide if you want your game board to cross itself. I have at times. One year we put a Y in it so they could choose whether they went to the right or to the left. You can make your whole game board in one color, or you can do it with all random colors, or you can make each square one color, however you want to do it. It's a lot of fun, and I seem to have lost my last page of notes. I'm so sorry. Okay, next slide, please. So sometimes we had an ending for our game board, and sometimes we didn't. The very first year we did it was a castle theme, and so was a a night theme, and so we had a castle at the end. We also, it gives them a significant goal, but also when they finish the game, we would usually give them a certain number of extra game bucks, whatever they were, just as a prize for getting all the way to the end, because all the children do not finish. Next slide. Okay, so you can just slowly scroll through these slides. It's just some pictures of various game boards. You can see they're done in different ways. They go different places. Lots of colors. It's bright. Even adults are like, what is this when they walk in the library? It's a lot of fun. And see, this one just ended at the wall. There was no significant ending. This one's got long sections of all one color. Every year was a little bit different. Those are somebody in the room with me is asking, what are the little squares within the squares? Those are prize spots. When they pass those, they get a prize. So one of the best parts about this game is that kids can play at any time. One of the struggles that we had at my library was so many of the kids' parents were working and they couldn't get themselves to the library. So they could play this anytime, whether it was program time or not. They could come every day and they will be learning. And if you give them an extra turn for reading, I guarantee you kids are going to read before they come to the library because they want to have that third turn. For us, it was 2 turns. If you read for 20 minutes, you get a third turn. Next slide, please. I feel like it went way too fast, but if you have questions that we don't answer today, please contact me. I'm happy to talk about my game. I have talked about it so many times, but this is the first time I've ever done an official presentation. So.
Well, thank you, Sherry. You did great with the presentation. I know it was a lot of information. We did have a couple questions come through. We'll get to those now. The first one having to deal with the tape. Did you find that the tape stuck to the carpet and left residue afterwards?
I actually have that in my notes that I somehow managed to not have here. So what I recommend, first of all, I take no responsibility if tape sticks to your floor. What I recommend is that you find a high traffic area where you can just put some duct tape down and leave it for a couple of weeks where it's getting walked on and moved on and maybe a wheelie chair is running over it and whatever, and see what happens. I do not have a problem. The only problem I had ever had is where my duct tape crossed some linoleum that was broken. It pulled up some of the broken pieces of the linoleum. But really, it's a great cleaning technique because when we get to the end of the summer and we pull up all that tape, it pulls dirt out of the carpet that vacuum cleaners don't get. So you could see the trails where the thing went, where it's kind of like waxing.
Well, there you go. Double purpose there. The next question is from Beth. What do kids do on each roll or their turn? Do they roll, move, and then answer the question, or how does their turn work?
So they roll the dice and they move forward to, and sometimes I use that as my way of asking of knowing what question, because we number all the squares and the questions are all numbered. So then, they land on square number 36 and they get question number 36. Depends some on how many questions you have and how many squares you have. But then if they get the answer right, then they get to stay on that square. If they don't, then of course they would have to go back to where they were before. But the kids never don't get the right answer, just saying.
Well, that's good then. Oh, good. And then another tape question. How does the tape hold up through cleaning or the duration of the summer program?
I find that it holds up great, even in high traffic areas. The only place that I usually have an issue is I have some runners, like where people come in, that I have water hog mats so that that will absorb the moisture instead of the rug, and they tend to shift a little bit, and sometimes that will mess up the tape right there. But other than that, I've never had any problem with the tape coming off during the game.
Oh, that's good. And then we'll end with this question here. Are these questions general knowledge questions about the library, or is research required?
Mostly general knowledge. I mean, like if it's a Dewey Decimal question, they're not going to know the answer, but I try to put up posters that say, this is what the Dewey Decimal numbers represent, so that they can find the answer in the library without having to go to the internet or anything of that nature.
All right, that's great. Thank you for your presentation and for those great ideas.
Thank you.
And if you have any other questions for Sherry or any of our presenters, we will share out their contact information along with a slide deck after we are done here. But before that, we have our last but exciting program. This one is Revolutionary Espionage, the Culper Spy Ring. Who doesn't like a good spy activity here? And that is going to be with Laura Delaval from Smithtown Public Library.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so my presentation has a lot of clicks. Well, let me just get to my, all right. So good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. I loved all of your presentations. It was lovely. I love the nature one and the mermaid parade. Oh, just all of it. So today, this is my Join the Revolution Long Island Spy Ring. So I did this last summer and I'm hoping to do it again this summer. I'm a history buff, so I love local history. And this was just a good program to get the kids interested in that through interaction and oral history. So click, please. All right, so my objective, click, is to get our little patrons more engaged with the local history of the Revolution. Without the Culper Spy Ring, the Continental Army would have fought in the dark and maybe even lost the Revolution altogether. So I mostly covered key figures and roles in the spy ring. So, and how long it was kept a secret. I was doing a lot of oral history about how it was found in an attic, who identified who in the spy ring. So it started with Talmadge, who's from Setauket, and he would send his friend Caleb Brewster down to the Sound onto Long Island in Setauket, where the message would be passed on to Anna Strong, who would hang up clothesline to let her neighbor know that there was a message from Washington or intel information that he could pass on to another Culper senior. So that was Abraham Woodhull that she would signal to. So I covered that. Yeah, that wasn't actually discovered until the 1930s. So they were really engaged with that, how secret it was and how things were kept under the wraps like that. And to get them more, you could do another click, please. And another click. Yeah, so to increase their interest, I used a lot of interactive components in my program, which was click, capture the flag game. So that was like the grand ta-da. And another click, please. As well as espionage twos that they could take home, surprises that they could take home with them so they could bring that espionage home with them. Next slide, please. Click. So another click, please. Sorry, I did a lot of clicks on these. So this is my description. The Revolutionary War wouldn't have been a success without a little help from the Long Island Spy Ring. Come to the library for hands-on experience of Revolutionary War espionage stories and activities. Click, please. So the intended audience ranged from 6 to 8-year-olds. Click, please. But I have learned that I could expand that age from like 6 to 10 or 8 to 12, because I think that's a good period of an age group that that could work. That way the older kids could help the younger kids and get them engaged before they're like, oh, history. Bleh. Next slide. Next click. Yeah. So the program was 45 minutes in length. Click again. But I also learned that I could have extended it by an hour, but you know, it's a live learn experience and they had a great time even in the 45 minutes. So next slide, please. So replicating the code. This was the longest part of me putting this program together. Click, please. So I relied on 2 sources to get this done, which is another click as well. Thank you. The Culper, the Culper code is on the Mount Vernon website. But I've also really recommend this book, but unfortunately, Baker and Taylor no longer sell it. It's out of publisher, but click, please. It's the George Washington Spy Master Book. This is the cover. If you ever find this in your donation cart, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a juvenile book covering exactly the Culper Spy Ring, and it has the code in the back. Like I said, it's unfortunately out of print. So if you find it, grab it. Click, please. This was the challenging part, which was writing it out. But this was actually the most fun for me to try to figure it out because I'm not internet savvy. I know I'm part of that generation, but so I worked on Microsoft Word and using columns and using in a small enough font that I was able to get everything fitting, but it was still legible. I was able to print it out, have it on a single sheet back, so I can make a little booklet out of it. And that was very handy. But again, getting it to this point was like the longest part. You could click into the next slide. So when I initially brainstormed this, I'm offering this as like, if you were interested to do this, this was what my mind went to. So the initial vision, to make it as historically as possible, I wanted to do the lemon juice and the cotton swabs and a heat source, and historically accurate heat source would have been candles, which is a no-go. But hair dryers would also work. But again, working in that time frame, I thought it was best to take the easier route. So click, please. This is the reality. So as well as this was a good opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry about that. This was a good opportunity for them to have the take-home prizes. So I used espionage pens, which was a modern convenience, and it was modern espionage and all that. And they could take it home. Next slide, please. So what else do I need to succeed? So we covered click. We covered the code. Click, please. We covered the pens. So now, to make this even more of a success, I did another take-home prize of top secret notepads. That way they could, it was just made it more complete. Click, please. This was also, I highly recommend this. This is reusable carpet strips that would be able to give the boundaries for the capture the flag component of my program. Another click as well. Now, this was also fun. I wanted to throw a little bit more of a surprise, so I did temporary tattoos of both the American flag and the Union Jack flag. That way, they wanted to put it on them during the captured flag to indicate what sides they were on, or even if they were turncoats, which ended up happening, as well as they could take that home, since it was a program that was thrown in July. So it was very on key. Next slide, please. So the breakdown. So this is the item list and the cost. So if we click, I also added the ASIN number. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but 6 rolls of 100 feet carpet marker strips, nylon. That was for a general program, so I arranged it as a supply. The 32-piece invisible ink spy pens were $19.99. The mini notepads were $14.95, and the temporary tattoos were $7.50 each, which made the total cost between $49 to $65. So like I said, the carpet strips, I used it as a general supply because I've used it in other programs, but the rest of them were specific. So for that exact program. So that's why it's the range. And click again, please. And the entire time of preparation from the idea to the day itself took 3 months. Next slide, please. The battle plan. I had to use this GIF for Home Alone fans out there. Okay, next slide, please. So I drew this out. I luckily had a community room that was able to double in size through a wall breakdown, which was very convenient and made everything much more expanse. So with the nylon strips, I was able to divide the room in half between the sides and indicate in the opposite color where was the prisoner of war, jail site. A must definitely have the rules printed out in front of you with the chart and all that, because, you know, having a lot of kids of, I think it was like 18 that came that day, it was good to just kind of be able to have that in front of me. That way it wasn't so overwhelming. And another thing was to make them switch sides, which they're reluctant to do at first, but then by the end of it, it was a mess. It was cute because there was this one kid. I was like, all right, who wants to be on the American side? And all of them at once were like, I'm American, I'm going to be American, I'm on the American side. And no one wanted to be on the British side. I was like, guys, I really need half of you to be British. Like, and they didn't want to be because they wanted to, like, they were so patriotic. It was cute. It was a really cute moment. But then by the end of it, I couldn't get anybody to join the American side again. Everyone wanted to stay British. It was funny. But it was another cute observation. One of the children that attended, his father was a Marine. So anytime he was on a side, that team won. He won again and again. He was a constant winner. So yeah, that was my battle plan of using game tables as well as long tables that you have in the storage room closets. So you could arrange it. I made an obstacle course for them as well, and used one of those colorful scarves from like a nursery rhyme time program to indicate the flags. That way they had a physical scarf in the intended color to grab. And next slide, please. That's Anna Strong with the clothesline. My overall experience, the program was a success. It was a hit. What I would do again, what I've learned, the age and the length of the program can be extended. I recommend it. And I look forward to doing it again. All right. And next slide. La fin. Shout out to the French. So there's my email and where I'm at. So any questions?
We do have a few questions. Thank you, Laura. That's fantastic, and bringing history in a fun way to the library. What a great program.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.
The first question that came through is from Jackie, and she said, where did you purchase the carpet strips?
Oh, everything was Amazon. I'm sorry. If we go back to if you want to go back to the site, you don't have to, but it was the SN number. That's all Amazon. So everything is Amazon. So when you get these slides, I have the link too. So if they're able to click on the link when you get it, yeah, it's all there for you.
Sounds good. Sarah just came in. She said, what was the actual gameplay involving? Passing messages, crawling behind tables?
So during my oral presentation of the history, I also introduced them to the code, which they weren't keen on doing it during the program. And again, in 45 minutes, I don't blame them. That's why I offered them to take it home, because like as they were leaving, they got more into it. They weren't really into it during the code game itself. So it was literally just them trying to capture the flag, tagging each other, going to the prisoner of war side, them trying to get their side out from that, from the prison and all that. Let's see. And then, yeah, so.
We just brought up the prices again. That's
yes.
Great.
Yeah, so the code and the pen and the notepads were, and even the temporary tattoos, but they were, a lot of them were used for, because they, I also had like pre-soaked paper towels handy. That way they were able to put it on them if they wanted to. But a lot of this was take home. So I still had leftovers. So it was cute.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it again?
Yes, I look forward to doing it again come July. I think it's a good program for that time of year. Absolutely. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of space you could use. You could utilize it and break it down to that way. But I definitely would recommend a expanded age group. That way, if they're siblings, usually they are, it could build another dynamic of competition.
Oh, that'd be good. And we'll end with this question here. How much time per week did you spend preparing over 3 months?
So the recreating the code took most of my time, which was about, like I'd say a month really to play with it, a month and a half, and really getting happy with it. And then preparing for it, I think it took about less than an hour to set up the room. Because again, I already had the vision ready to go and everything was, that's part of it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much, Laura. That's I think a great way to end on spy and espionage, and encouraging everyone to start continuing planning for this year's summer reading programs that are going to be coming up.
Absolutely.
Huge thank you to all our presenters today. What great ideas. Presentations went fairly smoothly. Thanks to everyone who stuck in for any minor technical issues, but we have made it to the end. And I'm going to pass it over to Renee for our final thoughts and ask for feedback.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all so much for being here. And thank you to all our presenters for sharing your amazing ideas with all of us today. We know this takes time, and we are incredibly grateful for everything you've created and shared with us. We would love it if you could all share your thoughts on today's collaboration by filling out our evaluation. The link should be in the chat. If it's not, it's also going to be sent to each of you from your system rep, but we'd really appreciate you filling it out. It's just a short Google form. Within the coming days, your system rep will also send your CEUs and a link to the Google Drive that will have all of the slides and the recording of today. Jack Scott from SALS will be time-stamping the recording so you can easily find the part of the workshop that you're interested in. And as a reminder, everyone's contact info is on the agenda that we had put in the chat. And if you don't have it, your system rep has it. They can send it to you. And it will probably, we'll put it in the Google Drive too. So no matter where you are in your adventure journey, we hope we've inspired you today to begin your adventure with your community and your young patrons to make this summer better than ever. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to my colleagues for emceeing and doing all the hard work.